It began with a whisper from the past, a fragment of parchment pulled from the desert ruins east of Eden. The script was nearly erased, dissolved by centuries of secrecy and sun, yet a single line shimmered through the dust. She who opened the eyes of angels. The name was lost, but the impact would travel across millennia, rippling through the foundations of sacred texts and echoing in the search for truth that defines every generation. Think about the world's oldest story. You learned it as a child, or maybe from a movie, a preacher, a meme. In the beginning, there was Adam and Eve in the garden. A serpent with a silver tongue, a fruit forbidden, a fall from grace. But what if that story was incomplete by design? What if another woman stood at the center, a woman who didn't just eat fruit, but awakened celestial beings? Someone so dangerous, so transformative, that her memory had to be erased? Imagine the courage to question the official version when your soul is on the line. That thunderclap of doubt striking as you wonder, have I been lied to my entire life? Tonight, that whisper becomes a roar. The revelation did not come from a Hollywood blockbuster or a Vatican leak, but from an amateur biblical archaeologist, combing through Dead Sea Scrolls and fragments from forbidden texts discarded by the gatekeepers centuries ago. He recognized the symbol, a serpent, coiled around a woman's wrist, her gaze not downcast, but defiantly raised to the sky. As specialists decoded the script, a narrative emerged, a forgotten chapter set in ancient Mesopotamia. Here, the boundaries between divine and mortal were paper-thin angelic beings, called watchers, walked among early humanity, drawn not just by beauty, but by wisdom. It's from these ancient sources and Gnostic texts that we learn of a woman, far more than a victim, or even a rebel. She was a catalyst. She was Eve, perhaps Lilith before her, or someone else entirely a name scrubbed from the canon, but preserved in whispers. Her story is the story of all of us, the drive to know what others say cannot be known. Some say she seduced the angels. Others say she offered them knowledge, or they her. The canonical Genesis draws a curtain over all this. Official religion brands the whole affair as an abomination. And yet, fragments persist, texts from Enoch, Gnostic Gospels, the Zohar, each suggesting that the fall was less a tumble into darkness than a leap toward consciousness. But what was the cost? Why hide her? Every era has those who bury knowledge, sometimes to protect, often to control. The truth is always dangerous, especially truths about origin and power. This knowledge isn't just ancient trivia. Today, with truth and misinformation at war, the stakes are as high as ever. If a missing page of Genesis could unsettle empires, what else are we ready to discover? In a culture obsessed with secrets, forbidden histories, an untold female power from the Matrix to Westworld to contemporary debates about gender and voice, her hidden story feels more urgent than ever. The journey begins with a question that never stops burning. Who was the woman who seduced angels, and why was she erased? As we trace her vanished footsteps, we begin to see the world differently. Not as a fall from innocence, but an awakening. Not as punishment, but the start of freedom. Her scandal echoes through every story of a woman who dared to break the rules, through every whistleblower, truth-teller, or outcast who sees what others are afraid to name. Are you ready to follow the clues she left behind? Are you brave enough to see where this story leads? The curtain rises. The hunt for the hidden woman and the secret she shared with angels has begun. Next chapter. The quest. The search widens to lost libraries, sacred ruins, and spiritual outcasts willing to speak the forbidden's name. The question echoes. Who was the woman who seduced angels? And why was she erased? For some, it's just a myth, but for those who become seekers, the call to uncover hidden truth is irresistible. Their journey isn't safe or simple. It traverses Secret vaults, storm-battered ruins, coded manuscripts, and memories that refuse to die. The story resumes not in a sunlit museum, but in the shadows. Our amateur archaeologist, now joined by a handful of doubters linguists, theologians, spiritual skeptics, receives a tip. In the archives of a forgotten monastery, a book exists that few dare even touch. The cover bears no title, only the faint imprint of a woman's eyes watching. It calls itself the Scroll of Awakening, written in a code blending Hebrew, Sumerian, and Greek. The search leads to the banks of the Tigris, where settlements older than Scripture still spill secrets into the earth. Here, beneath layers of war and weather, lie stories of the Lichu, Inanna, Eve women who challenged gods and fate. The fragments describe the Watchers' angels in human form. They watched, yes, but who watched them? The texts tell of forbidden meetings, rituals in moonlit gardens, wisdom exchanged for mystery, and a pact to hide all record when the cost became too great. Our explorers meet those on the margins, the mystics, syncretists, and renegades whose voices are rarely heard in official halls. A Coptic Christian woman in Cairo, a Kabbalah scholar in New York, a Sumerologist in Istanbul, each adds a thread to the growing tapestry. They point to Coptic scrolls, to the enigmatic Book of Enoch, to Gnostic gospels that survived only because someone risked everything to bury them in desert jars. But truth is never merely historical. As our seekers share their findings, opposition rises. A university cancels research grants after pressure from unnamed donors. Online threats, accusations of heresy, even old friends who grow cold with fear. The world's deepest secrets are always guarded, not by elaborate locks, but by shame and silence. The quest for truth, the woman's journey, that's what institutions most want to bury. Still, the search deepens. Our protagonist sits with a weathered translation of the Zohar, finding lines hinting at a divine feminine presence, Sophia, whose wisdom descends like a lamp into the darkness. In Nag Hammadi texts, the archetype emerges, the woman who reveals, who awakens, who dares what others resist. Patterns repeat. In Sumerian carvings, a winged woman confronting gods. In Greek myth, Pandora, blamed for opening the box, but bringing hope alongside chaos. Each interview, scroll, and ritual cracks open more questions. Was the seduction an act of transgression or an invitation to mutual enlightenment? Did humanity's first woman fall, or did she awaken something divine in both mortals and angels? The Gnostic philosophers call this gnosis an inner, knowing that can never be wholly outlawed or forgotten. Yet, every revelation is paradox. The more our seekers uncover, the less they can trust any single narrative, especially their own. Dreams bring warnings. A city burning, a serpent coiled around a sacred tree, a voice whispering, "Not all knowledge is liberation." The closer they come to the heart of the myth, the more the cost of forbidden's wisdom becomes real. When the chapter closes, the group finds itself in possession of a fragment said to contain the lost name. Their hands tremble, not just from excitement, but fear. To speak the unspeakable, to resurrect the story of the woman erased. Will it bring freedom or destruction? Is the truth a gift or another curse? The journey has become personal. What began as an archaeological mystery is now a spiritual trial, where every seeker must decide how much truth they are willing to bear. Next chapter, the revelation, where the true meaning of the encounter between woman and angels is unraveled, revealing a story far more radical than any had imagined. The dusty pages fold open to a truth forgotten, obscured by millennia of dogma and power. What if the seduction of the angels was not a corruption, but a cosmic awakening? As our seekers piece together texts from the Dead Sea Scrolls, Nag Hammadi codices, and apocryphal Genesis retellings, a radically new picture emerges, one that challenges everything we believed about sin. Knowledge and the divine feminine. A fragment of Coptic scripture whispers, "She gave them sight beyond." The veil, not to fall, but to rise. The woman who seduced angels becomes not a temptress doomed, but a liberator who opened the doors of consciousness, both for celestial and mortal realms. The angels, or watchers, were not merely corrupted by carnal desire, but illuminated by her wisdom, awakening a higher level of understanding previously forbidden. This revelation turns the orthodox narrative upside down. The act labeled as the original sin may be humanity's first true rebellion against imposed ignorance. It was not a fall into darkness, but a leap into gnosis, spiritual knowledge that frees from the demiurge's blind control. From the Gnostic perspective, the demiurge, a jealous creator god, sought to imprison humanity in ignorance and obedience. The woman, invoked as both Eve and allegorically as Sophia, is the divine spark of wisdom who pierces this illusion. Through her seduction, she invites not disgrace, but awakening, an act that threatens the cosmic order of patriarchal institutions. Cross-referencing myths from Sumerian, Lilith to Greek Pandora and Kabbalistic Sophia reveals a recurring archetype, the forbidden's feminine, who brings both chaos and salvation through knowledge. Her story is woven with ethical ambiguity. Was she a hero or a heretic? The texts never give simple answers, only layered truths steeped in paradox. The moral dilemma intensifies. If knowledge liberates, why has it been suppressed? Is ignorance protection or control? The scholars our protagonists interview wrestle with this. Embracing the seductress invites societal upheaval and personal crisis. Yet, refusing her story perpetuates silence and spiritual blindness. Tensions escalate when newly uncovered evidence threatens to disrupt orthodox teachings. Academic institutions retract support, and debate spills into the digital realm, polarizing communities between faith and heresy, science and mysticism, tradition and revolution. But deeper than politics is the existential crisis for anyone who internalizes this revelation. If the origin of humanity is not shame but awakening, how does that reshape our self-identity? Are we fallen children of sin or awakened seekers of truth? The revelation demands courageous re-examination of beliefs, identity, and destiny. The woman who seduced angels is no longer a forgotten shadow, but a beacon of possibility. Her story, a cipher challenging us to choose. Uphold the old order of imposed ignorance, or step into the light of gnosis, with all its risk and promise. As viewers sit with this transformation, the stage sets for a historic confrontation between entrenched sacred lies and the unveiling of suppressed truths. Next chapter. The climax. The public and spiritual battle to claim or silence the story that dares to rewrite Genesis itself. How do you face the world when everything you thought was sacred is suddenly thrown into question? News of the uncovered scroll spreads like wildfire. Social media boils with speculation and outrage. Cable talk shows and viral podcasts light up with debate. Has the missing woman Eve, Lilith, Sophia, or someone else been restored to her true place in humanity's story? Or is this a dangerous heresy threatening the very fabric of faith? The protagonists, once a scattered band of scholars, theologians, and iconoclasts, find themselves thrust onto the world stage. Conference halls fill with electric tension. One moment, a young professor defends the revelations at an Ivy League symposium, connecting dots from Sumerian carvings to Gnostic fragments. The next, a conservative televangelist thunders that rewriting Genesis is blasphemy, an attack on the foundations of Western morality itself. The woman's myth, once buried in shadow, now dances at the heart of a global controversy. As the stakes rise, so do the risks. Anonymous phone calls, hacked emails, threats against family members. A shadowy resistance forms, desperate to bury the story again. University grants are rescinded. Ancient artifacts disappear. Even among the team, old loyalties fracture. One member, under intense pressure, leaks a misleading excerpt to the press, spinning the woman's legacy as nothing but primordial temptation and corruption. Yet, even in chaos, the power of the buried story spreads. Grassroots book clubs, TikTok creators, and late-night comedians splash her legend into the mainstream, sometimes twisting, sometimes clarifying, always igniting debate. Daughters, mothers, seekers, doubters, and rebels recognize pieces of themselves. In The Exiled Woman. In a climactic confrontation on national television, the team's lead scholar meets one of her fiercest critics. The critic demands, "By portraying the seduction as liberation, aren't you inviting society to abandon all moral boundaries?" The scholar, unflinching, replies, "Or are we rediscovering that wisdom, agency, and questioning authority are the real birthrights of humanity? Isn't refusing forbidden knowledge just another form of slavery?" Suddenly, the debate is universal. Are you safer living inside the stories told to you, or risking everything for the truth? What if the original break from innocence wasn't the beginning of shame, but the first heartbeat of freedom? Public demonstrations ripple across the country. Some hold up signs saying, "Let her speak, and Eve was framed." Others shout, "Do not rewrite Scripture." Online, ancient hashtags trend alongside new ones. Hashtag original liberation, hashtag hidden Genesis, hashtag Eve awakens. Personal crises mirror the cultural storm. Followers confront mentors. Children question parents. Partners debate what is truly sacred. To accept the woman's story means to accept that the foundations of self and society may be built on purposeful omission. For some, that's exhilarating. For others, it's terrifying. The final confrontation is not just on screens or stages, but in hearts and homes. The choice is offered as starkly as it was in the garden: to linger in curated innocence or step into the light. However blinding, just when it seems a conclusion is within reach, new clues emerge. A citation in a medieval grimoire. A woman's name, mistranslated for centuries, now revealed in the original tongue. The mystery deepens even as the world struggles to process the revelations already at hand. The chapter closes not with resolution, but with open nerve endings, raw, unsettled, and utterly alive. On a personal, communal, and spiritual level, the truth no longer fits within a single narrative. If the woman who seduced angels is every outcast, every questioner, every bearer of forbidden insight, then maybe the true climax isn't a single moment of revelation, but a threshold crossed together into a future that won't be written by tradition alone. Next, the transformation. How the rediscovered woman's story changes lives, reframes ancient and modern identity, and leaves us with a call to action that echoes far beyond Genesis itself. The world has changed. There's no going back. News feeds, pulpits, classrooms, and kitchen tables echo with the aftershock of a myth rewritten. The lost story of the woman who seduced angels now pulses in the collective imagination, defying easy containment or silencing by dogma. For those who dared to follow the journey, everything looks different. Even the morning sunlight seems to hold new questions, new possibilities, silhouetted against the restless digital glow. Activists and spiritual seekers host nightly streams dissecting the recovered texts. Some read them as a feminist gospel, liberation disguised as transgression, wisdom recast as seduction. Others protest in front of ancient cathedrals, demanding that their vision of morality remain unsullied. On college campuses, a generation raised to doubt authority finds an ancient echo in the woman's defiance. The forbidden has become irresistible, but beneath the culture war headlines, subtler tremors rock the deeper ground. A paralegal in Philadelphia, raised in a strict religious home, runs her fingers over the marginalia of a family Bible and feels, for the first time, that curiosity is not a curse. A retired pastor, wrestling with his faith, writes a letter of apology to his daughter. He now suspects the original fall may have been the world's first step toward spiritual responsibility, not its downfall. A group of women in the California high desert reenact ancient rituals, reclaiming a voice they'd only ever known as forbiddens. Scholars, too, surrender to the story's gravity. Journals fill with debates over the origins of gnosis, the real meaning of seduction, and whether humanity's first awakening was divine accident or cosmic strategy. Harvard hosts a summit on hidden Genesis, beyond sin and silence, where theologians and skeptics alike argue late into the night, voices, raw with awe and friction. Yet the real transformation is personal. With the power of the old myth broken open, anyone can hold the fragments and see what pattern they might create. For every person, the questions surface differently. Am I who they say I am, or is there more? What secrets have been hidden by others or by myself? Can I bear the cost of seeking forbidden's wisdom, knowing it will change me forever? No institution, however mighty, can fully control the direction of this unfolding. The revelation acts like a spark in dry grass sometimes. It blazes into protest. Sometimes it glows quietly in a single home. Even fierce opponents of the heretical reading cannot erase the fact that a lost woman's story, once nearly obliterated, now crosses tongues and borders with the code of possibility. The woman who seduced angels walks again, not literally, but in glances exchanged across generations, in words that break silence, in every act of knowledge reclaimed from shame. She becomes an archetype for those who question, who refuse easy answers, who sense that the garden's real fruit was freedom. Yet the story, like all stories that matter, ends not with tidy closure, but with open doors. We are left where every journey into the unknown must end, at the threshold, with new questions pulsing through the blood. If sin was awakening, what else have we been told to fear that holds our liberation? What other names wait to be recovered from the margins of history? A call lingers in the air, less command than invitation. Dare to seek, dare to challenge, dare to awaken. The woman who seduced angels was exiled from the text, but her footsteps, your footsteps, might just be where the next secret is waiting to be found. And now, the story is yours. Discussion for the audience. What personal forbidden's fruit have you feared to explore? How does reframing an ancient myth shift our sense of self and society? If questioning is not a sin, but a calling, what will you ask next? This concludes the 5-chapter narrative. If you wish to explore further, suggest a new question or theme for the next journey.